Hey there, Alex Kidman here. Today I'm on the floor. Why am I on the floor? Well, because I'm reviewing a tech object that lives on the floor. It's this one, the DreamMe W10 Robot Vacuum Cleaner and Mop. But it's a bit hard and a bit uncomfortable down on the floor, so I think I'll get up now. Robot vacuum cleaners have been around for a long time now, and I've reviewed more than a few of them over the years at all sorts of price points. Now, here in Australia, the DreamMe W10 sells for around $1,699, which very much places it in the upper tier of robot vacuums, and it mostly sells itself on its advanced mopping technology. Now, some ground rules before I start. Just like about every other robot vacuum, it's mostly a luxury buy, excluding folks, I guess, who have significant mobility issues. And look, it mostly lives up to its promises, especially on the mopping front. So in terms of its design, in terms of its setup, look, the W10 is a big unit. It comes in a big box, but setup is pretty simple. You've got the standalone cleaning station, you've got the robot vacuum cleaner, you unpack those, you drop some water into the clean water bin, and you sync it with the Mi Home app for iOS or Android. This is all fairly simple, all fairly well laid out, nothing that should challenge anyone. Now, when you first run it, you can either get it to do a speedy zip around your home to map, or do a slower run, including cleaning. Now, it's mostly smart at this kind of thing, spotting most of the obstacles in its way and marking them out appropriately. I was pleased to see that it intelligently handled some raised surfaces in my home. Some RoboVacs I've tested have tended to bump their way around these obstacles pretty badly, but the DreamMe W10 managed them to climb them without too much fuss. I've got to talk a little bit about the DreamMe W10's shape because it is a little bit unusual for a RoboVac. Look, most RoboVacs tend to be round, but the W10 is instead squared off. DreamMe calls it a D shape, and I guess I can see the D in that. One potential advantage here, and this will depend on your layout, this will depend on your furniture, is that I've found that the W10 can make its way under some of my chairs without me having to lift them, as I would for other RoboVacs. Now, given that a robot vacuum cleaner is an item designed to reduce your housework, that's quite a welcome step, although obviously highly variable, won't work with every chair, but certainly worked nicely enough with mine. Okay, so let's talk vacuuming performance, because the W10 is sold as a robot vacuum cleaner. And here it mostly works well, at least on maximum suction. Now, I'll be honest here, I tend to run most robot vacuum cleaners on maximum. I can't really see why you wouldn't, unless noise was a particular problem. On lower settings, yeah, there are some crumbs, some material it won't grab. That's true of any robot vacuum cleaner. And equally true is you need to run these things on a fairly repetitive basis for them to make sense. If you're only going to run them once a week, once a fortnight, yeah, they're not going to seem that great because you're giving them an awful lot to do. Run them daily or every second day, and they can do quite a decent maintenance sort of job. Now, I do have one very specific brutal test that I put robot vacuum cleaners through via one of my thicker rugs. And look, a lot of robot vacuum cleaners get onto this thing and they just stop. They get stuck. The DreamMe W10 at first struggled a little here, and in one instance actually got its sweeper brush stuck on some fibres in this rug, which is less than ideal. Even after a few months of use, it still struggles here working out where it is, does an okay-ish job. If you have thicker rugs, though, you are going to find most robot vacuum cleaners struggle with that kind of challenge. It's certainly not alone in that problem area. Regular carpet, regular rugs, hardwood floors, not a problem at all. What may be a problem, though, is the way the DreamMe W10 handles vacuumed material. So most expensive RoboVacs with this kind of docking station include a vacuum bag in there somewhere. So the robot comes back, it auto-empties the bag, you don't have to do anything. Beautiful, right? This is not what the DreamMe W10 does, because its focus on its cleaning station is actually on the mopping. So instead you get this little bin, and you've got to pull it out and you've got to empty it yourself. Now, I don't mind doing that extra layer of work. That's very standard across a lot of lower cost robot vacuum cleaners. My bigger problem here is that the actual bin itself is not particularly big. You're going to have to empty that on a more regular basis than you might otherwise. The app does a pretty good job of saying, hey, maybe empty the bin when it's finished, but you've still got to do it yourself. And you can get robot vacuum cleaners in this price bracket that do auto-emptying, albeit not with the kind of mop that this has. So let's move on to the mop, because mopping is really where the DreamMe W10 makes its big sales pitch. Most robot vacuum cleaners these days advertise themselves as being suitable as robot mops as well. And put simply, most robot vacuum cleaners are lying. Or they're at least being a bit cheeky or economical with the truth when they describe what they do as mopping. Generally, they involve a damp pad with a tiny water reservoir above them, being dragged across your floor, making them gently moist at best. Honestly, I've tested dozens of them, and in most cases, anything you might call mopping is coincidental at best. The Dream Me W10 has a different approach. It uses these two rotating mop pads to actually scrub the floor and ensure a better clean as a result. Now, they won't come into play at all. It won't even think about mopping if they're not attached. But if you do leave them attached, before any cleaning job, the W10 will kick into play and wet the mop heads before setting out to clean. Now, that is a slightly noisy process, as is the process when it comes back to base to either re-wet the mop heads or clean them after a job. Probably not a big issue if you've got the Dream Me W10 in an open living area, but maybe a pain if you live in a smaller apartment. The Dream Me W10's carpet detection when mopping is reasonable, but not flawless. So I've got this one section here where there's two rugs with a floor gap between them. Kind of Death Star trench for RoboVacs, and the W10 constantly tries to mop that trench run. If I let it do it, the edges of the carpet's quite likely to end up damp as well, which of course I don't want. My workaround for this, and this does work quite well, is to use its zone cleaning setup instead to exclude that area when I'm mopping. This may be an issue for you otherwise. On more regular carpet again though, to be clear, it's basically fine. It detects it and it goes, yep, I'm just not going to go over this because the mopping pads are on. If you want that vacuumed, you'll have to remove those pads. Actual cleaning is pretty good. I have a busy household with multiple teenagers, multiple people, and multiple indoor-only cats, and it manages their spills, disasters, and fur fairly well. It's certainly well above the quality you get out of the typical moist rag approach from most robot vacs, with just two observations. Firstly, similar as I said with the vacuuming, this is going to work best if you run it regularly. The Dream Me W10 is a premium machine, but that kind of regular maintenance cleaning is still where robot vacuum cleaners and robot mops do their best work. If you only run it once a week, you might be a bit disappointed when it doesn't polish everything to a crystal shine, in other words. Secondly, it does do an effective job of mopping and then cleaning itself up, but this leaves you with a rapidly filling wastewater tank. The app reminds you every time to clear the tank in a timely fashion, but look, we're all human, and we've bought a robot vacuum cleaner to be a little bit lazy, right? Take my advice, learn from my mistakes. Don't be lazy with clearing the waste tank, especially if you have kids and pets. Sure, look, this looks kind of gross, but be happy that YouTube doesn't have smell-o-vision, because if you do leave it for a while, it not only builds up in volume, but also in odour. Fermented mop juice might be fine wine in prison, but I'll pass, thanks.
To the base for self-cleaning.
So should you buy the W10? Look, there's definitely a luxury element to buying any robot vacuum cleaner for most people, and that's still absolutely true for the Dream Me W10, especially at its price. It's not 100% flawless, no robot vacuum is, but if you've been looking for a robot vacuum cleaner, and especially one that can handle mopping duties, it's a good option. Now, in this space, you could also consider devices like the rather similar Ecovacs X1 Omni, which uses a similar swirling robot mop attachment, but that's a much higher price point device than the Dream Me W10. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the Dream Me W10 robot vacuum cleaner and mop. Got any thoughts or observations? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, thanks for watching, and please do tap that subscribe button.